Good morning, America. Here it is my pleasure to bring you a special report on the recent conclusion of the Ninth Crusade. I'm very excited to bring our next guests on the show. However, before we do that, I feel it necessary to explain the conclusion of the last major crusade in the 2-century history of the Crusades, and the significance that this crusade had on the rest of Europe. Now, there are many reasons as to why this crusade was initiated. However, perhaps the most prevalent reasoning behind this crusade was the flop of the Eighth Crusade, which was a military disaster. Soon-to-be King Edward launched the final crusade in defense of a strong Christian outpost, the Acre, which was under Islamic siege. Edward prepared to defend against the Islamic threat by aligning with the local factions of Mongols, which would eventually be successful in defending the stronghold and would result in him being crowned as King of England upon his return. Lord Edward's arrival in Acre was significant as it helped some of the Muslim forces to temporarily retreat from the region.
Edward knew that in order to build an army capable of retaking Jerusalem, he needed to settle the internal strife within the Christian kingdom. Thus, he negotiated between Hugh and his knights from Cyprus' Ibrahim family. Meanwhile, Edward and Hugh began negotiating a truce with Baibars. In May 1272, in Caesarea, a 10-year, 10-month, and 10-day truce was made. Edmund quickly left for England, while Edward stayed to see if the peace would hold. An assassination attempt was made on him the following month. Edward survived the attempt, but this delayed his departure. Eventually, he was able to follow his brother and was crowned King of England in 1974.
I had originally planned to meet with King Louis during the Eighth Crusade in Tunis, but when I arrived there, I found that the Eighth Crusade was actually over and that King Louis died of dysentery. Most of the Crusaders went home after that, but I decided to make my way. I was dedicated. I made my way to the Holy Land, so you could probably say that the Ninth Crusade is a continuation of the Eighth because it happened right after. As soon as I made my way to the Holy Land, the Ninth Crusade basically began. Some people consider me to be the central figure in the Ninth Crusade. I believe it is because I was the leader among the 1,000 Crusaders that were basically left in the Ninth Crusade. We went to Acre, and this was very important for the crusade. You see, we were able to get some of the Muslims to retreat. We carried out a few raids with the local Muslims during these months, and we achieved some considerable victories. And this crusade is the last because it was the last major crusade in the next 200 years following. After this, there were requests to start a crusade, but none were really carried out.
The year was 1244, and I had finally made up my mind and decided to take up the cross to finally free the Holy Land. I didn't get the best reactions from my barons, but I went anyways, because that's what I wanted to do. The situation there was critical. Jerusalem had fallen into the hands of Muslims, and on top of that, the Sultan of Egypt had seized Damascus. I was worried that if aid from the West was not coming to help the Christian kingdom, the East would have collapsed, and I didn't want that fear to become true. There's a great struggle between the Roman Empire and the papacy, so the time had never been more favorable to start a crusade. The preparation to make everything perfect took so long, and a lot of hard work was put into it, but we were finally ready. We finally embarked from Agios Morton on August 21st, 1248. It was a long crusade, and it had ended on 1254. I decided to go on another crusade 16 years later. The failure of the crusade prompted Louis to make another effort. The original plan was going to Syria or Egypt was diverted to an attack on Tunisia by Louis' brother Charles of Anga, King of Sicily, who had interest in Tunisia. About 10,000 Crusaders landed in July 1270. When Louis took sick and died there in August, Charles of Anga made a profitable peace and returned bearing the remains of the beloved king, who is universally mourned in Europe.
Now onto the epilogue. The Ninth Crusade, also known as Lord Edward's Crusade, was from 1271 to 1272. This war was a military expedition that was under the authority of Edward, Duke of Gascony. This was the last crusade to reach the Holy Land and brought an end to the crusade presence there. In 1960, Baibars, a general from the Battle of Ain Gulut, started attacking Christian crusaders at Caesarea and many other multiple places. As each crusade fortress fell, they were more vulnerable and needed outside help. By 1628, Barabas captured Antioch, which led to Edward to take the cross. Edward and his brother were supposed to go on an expedition to join King Louis of France in fighting, but it was delayed several times because their father, the King of England, could not make up his mind if it was worth joining. After his long journey, Edward finally arrived at Arques on May 9, 1271, with a fleet of 8 sailing vessels and 30 galleys. He also brought 1,000 men and 225 knights. He realized that his army was too small for the Mamelukes, that he launched a series of raids. This led to him capturing Nazareth and losing several men to the heat. Edward's brother then joined him with more men, and they did a larger raid on the Count of Quequan, which was also successful. The Muslim commander fled his castle, which led to Baybars abandoning his siege. This crusade was generally a success because it did damage to the Muslims and took back some land, but it did not solve the problem in full, and Jerusalem was still in the hands of the Muslims. Thank you for watching this segment on the Ninth Crusade. Until next time.